Katie, thank you, and everyone in attendance, thank you very much for taking an hour of your valuable time and attending this session. We hope you like it, and unfortunately, we're going to have to keep it high level, but fortunately, I know better than to do a bunch of slide presentations like you're seeing now. I want to maximize the webinar and actually show you the product. I'll go into JD Edwards and go into various use case scenarios, but it is necessary to kind of set the foundation on who we are and how we're positioned in the marketplace, a little bit about some of our JDE customers. So with that, Katie just introduced me. I'm Doug Pulaski, Director of Sales and Marketing. I have a couple of other folks from our company. Suman Prasad, go ahead and introduce yourself.
Hello, everyone. So I'm Suman Prasad. I'm the Chief Technology Officer.
And then Pete Carroll.
Hi, everyone.
And then with that, just to let you know, there we go. A little bit about K-Rise Systems. We are located in Aurora, Illinois, so we're in the Chicago suburbs, and we've been around for 14 years, and our focus is to provide the JDE community with value-add solutions. Our biggest practice area is the first bullet that you see up here, e-commerce and payments, and that's what we're going to be focused on today is the payment side. E-commerce definitely comes into play in terms of it being a use case scenario, but we're going to be talking about payments from the perspective of JD Edwards sales orders, JD Edwards invoices, CSRs working heads down in the JD Edwards programs like sales order, crate P4210, and pay an invoice collections functionality. I'll actually show the agenda. We'll review our portal. The other bullets up there simply indicate that as a software company, we also work with other JDE companies in terms of providing business value for, as an example, the procurement side, buyer-supplier portals, portal records, automation. And the reason we have a diverse group of practices and solutions, and I want to emphasize payments and commerce is our number one, it's because we're set up like JD Edwards tools in terms of being a software company. What I mean by that is we're a platform company. Just like JD Edwards E1 is based on tools, and I'm sure most of you have developers, E1 developers working with Object Management Workbench, creating your various versions and doing your customizations. We have the same thing. We're platform-based, and we're actually going to review our platform. We think it's a huge advantage over our competitors, and they're coming from a programming language, a Java shop, a .NET shop type of perspective. So we'll review that. Our credentials are best shown by some of our customer logos. We've got large companies, and JD Edwards, my background is JD Edwards for 21 years. I go back to being a pre-sales consultant working at JD Edwards way before the Oracle acquisition in 1997. And JD Edwards is made up of a lot of what's called the SMB, $100 million, $200 million companies. But just to highlight our customer base, we address both of them. At the high end, we have Fortune 500 company Yum Brands for their Pizza Hut, Taco Bell, and KFC, allowing a worldwide portal for their franchisees, their 15,000 franchisees, to not only report sales, but we create the invoice, we create the payment options for them. It replaced 24 regional centers. At the high end, ServiceMaster is another customer of ours, Terminex, Mary Maid, American Home Shield, Christie's. They use us from a worldwide perspective. Not everybody goes to the Christie's showroom in Rockefeller Center or London or Hong Kong. Quite the contrary, most now use the My Christie's application. So within Christie's for payments, tied to the Audion processor and the Audion gateway, we have EasyPay there. And we have many small companies. Here's one here, ICOM. So ICOM America, they're focused on not only sales orders and invoices, but work orders. They want, before they create aviation and marine radios, if it's not under warranty, they want an automated process where the customers pay for it with credit card or ACH e-check before it's sent back. So there's a lot of use case scenarios indicative both from our customer base, large and small. Here's our platform. I'm not going to get into the platform from a presentation. We're going to show it to you and help you understand the derived business benefits of a platform approach. It's a no-code platform. That's why we're able to do quick deployments, 1 to 2 months for EasyPay. It's a service-oriented architecture. We can create the logic from a Visio Canvas type perspective, workflow, that's called the web part. When you get into integration, this is like e-commerce and some elements of EasyPay. There's a lot there, and we feel that we have the most robust JDE integration methods available. And then here's a little bit more about the JD Edwards integration from the batch AR update side for the reconciliation process for both sales orders and invoices. And I'm sure everybody in attendance understands the FO3B11. And really this helps highlight the 3 areas of automation that we provide as a bolt-on that JD Edwards doesn't have vanilla out of the box within AR and sales order. And that's being able to allow payments like credit card e-check at order crate. For most companies, they want just an authorization at order crate. They want to do the settlement capture, say at ship confirmation. It's flexible. It depends on, too, if you want to take a hold code approach or a status code approach. We support both. But that's just a little bit about our integration, our application, cloud or on-prem. For EasyPay, we do promote the cloud. Our default cloud provider is Amazon AWS. We're set up in the various Amazon regions like Ohio and Oregon, and this is the Amazon. And I'll touch on that in the slide, why we promote AWS for EasyPay when you get into the PCI, the 12 requirements of PCI, the 400 plus controls that PCI dictates, and we'll touch on that in a second. This is a little bit about our architecture, and think of EasyPay as middleware between managing JDE, the transactions, status codes updates, and the payment gateway. We're going to be talking about a hosted payment page form. We are no longer, EasyPay, we rewrote it in 2014, we're no longer a payments application. We do things like a hosted payment page, so per PCI cardholder data processing, transmit, storage, it's all at the, say, PayPal or CyberSource or Authorize.net or Moneris or Chase Payment Tech or Orbital. We support all the gateways. So they're managing the cardholder data, which is what you want. You want to remove as much as possible PCI liability, and we do too. And that's why we take this approach. And this is just a little bit more about it. The validations and the certifications. When you're tightly integrated with JD Edwards as we are, you need to mandate that the applications are fully vetted by Oracle and JD Edwards Denver. And that's called Oracle Validated Integration. And our platform, EASYProcess, and our application, EasyPay, is fully vetted. Let me give you one example of the benefits of working with a software vendor that's OVI certified. JD Edwards assigned to KRISE JDE System 99 codes. So we use those codes for our EasyPay. In fact, Suman, you can kind of describe how we use the System 99 codes of JD Edwards, both from a perspective of the forms that I'm going to be showing in JD Edwards, sales order crate, some of the other areas, right?
So that allows us to have some our objects separated from your JD Edwards standard objects, and we separated most of our code that you need to run EasyPay into Q99 business function and objects. That allows you to have a very low footprint on P4210 if you want an interactive solution from P42 order entry.
Okay, and we'll touch on the specifics of what Suman is talking about when we get into the demo in just a few minutes. Now, in regards to certification, you can't forget the PCI part of the equation. So PCI is the consortium that has enforcement and management over merchants like yourself, manufacturers, distributors, because when you ask your customers for things like credit card information or related to that, you're adding liability to your company, and you've got to do it per PCI standards. So we do have an auditor. It's called an SAQ. They're TrustWave, a big auditor, and they audit our application. We submit a questionnaire document. It's called the PCI QSA to TrustWave. They do the scanning and the vulnerability testing, and they do it quarterly. And then they submit it to PCI, and so our applications are certified within PCI as what's called AOC, Attestation of Compliance. And the certification of compliance is what TrustWave does, is our PCI auditor, but when they submit it to PCI, it's called AOC, Attestation of Compliance. Now, the demo flow that I'm going to go through is highlighted on this slide right here. So I talked about the various use case scenarios. And we have within the, and let's talk just JD Edwards sales order, a credit card sales order, or an e-check ACH sales order. In other words, it's not AR terms. So we have something called JDE Interactive. And this is your CSRs working in the P4210 or Power Forms, JD Edwards, and they're entering the cardholder data. And there's nothing wrong with that as long as you do it right. But more and more people are wanting to take and eliminate any possibility of PCI liability to the ultimate extent. And that's why this session today is focused on de-scoping. De-scoping is a JDE workflow. Actually, it's a EasyPay JDE workflow automation process, and you're moving the creation of the card holder data. The card holder data is the liability aspects of, what's on the chip, what's on the stripe portion of the credit card number, expiration, the CVV code. So this is the customer entering it completely off of your premises. And when we talked a second ago about JD Edwards integration, we seamlessly integrate against your address book AR. In other words, we have EasyPay and tied to payment instrument or credit terms. Those are the two most popular fields for the obvious reason. You can create different AR characteristics, such as a customer that at order create want to do what's called a full auth. You want to put the funds and maybe a fudge factor on hold. This is like a rental car. When you rent from Enterprise or Hertz, they're doing an authorization. They're taking what they expect and adding a factor, $100, $200, depending on the number of days. They don't know if you're bringing it back with gas or a dent in the fender. So that's a full authorization. And then, of course, they do the capture settlement when you're in the return lane, and they check on everything. But we have, in B2B, we have many companies, as an example, that say, hey, this is B2B. It's not B2C. It's not Amazon. Our customers don't want us to put that hold on their credit available. So we do what's called a zero auth and simply validate the credit card number, expiration date, make sure that's okay, but it's a $0 or a $1 authorization. And then there's a prepaid. So this would be like a credit unworthy customer. We run into this a lot, where you want the cash up front at order create. And what we're doing is we're creating a UI, an RU invoice, And then when you do the advance the order and you create the RI, we're matching the RU against the RI. And you know what? A picture tells 1,000 words. Let me just show that. And then we're going to demonstrate invoice collections from the address book. And then we're going to be talking about the portal, so you can allow customers things like online bill pay. And then we'll be talking about the e-commerce aspect. And then also we do, in addition to sales order, we natively work against service contracts and work orders in JD Edwards. I talked about ICOM with non-warranty repairs, wanting an email, going out and requesting payment and updating the status on the work order that it's paid so that they can indeed ship it, fully automated. But I'm not going to have time to get into those. I'll stay with the top 3, possibly 4 portions. And this is the focus of the webinar today, is PCI does include people. And when you get into, and here's a PCI document called Scoping Definitions, and when you get into the detail, people. So as an example, the keyboard. Some companies are concerned about typing in credit card numbers on the keyboard and seeing it in the form when they're entering it in. And the outdated practice is an example of a customer with a phone credit card order of replying back to the customer the card number. That's subject to eavesdropping and a data breach. They want to remove all of that. And that's why, the focus and the 2 big PCI acronyms that we talked about, cardholder data and cardholder data environment. And the cardholder data environment, gets into, do you want it fully outsourced to AWS? So AWS is obviously a tier 1 data center with all the accreditations. Now, when you're working against the payment gateway, and by the way, for everybody that's not aware of this, but when you're dealing with e-commerce, or what the industry calls card not present, they also call it MOTO, mail order, telephone order, you don't have a swipe device. Your CSRs are on the phone or reading from a fax, and so you need a payment gateway, and that's what I was referring. We support them all out there. Fan of CyberSource, PayPal, Authorize.net. And when you're working against Authorize.net or any PayPal, you can either do an authorize only, like the rental car. Put up, authorize the funds. When you return the rental car, they come back and do a capture. I kind of look as authorize only as a booking of the order, and then the capture, the shipment. So when Amazon ships, they do the capture, and it's pulled out of your issuing bank card. Or it could be a sale. When you're at Barnes & Noble and you're buying it in the back with your credit card, they're doing what's called an authorize and capture. That's a sale. Something to keep in mind. And this is the last slide I'm going to show, and it deals with the reconciliation. And you'll see that batch AR update. We can, and this slide simply means that there is when funds flow into your merchant account, there is a CSV file, it's a text file. And there is a reference number here on that text file that we can use to do an exact reconciliation of funds coming in. And we'll talk about that as I go through the demo. So with that, let's go to JD Edwards. And I'm going to go, actually, let me go back here and let me go down to the demo environment. Okay, so this is where we were looking at. I'm going to do JD Edwards Interactive, then I'm going to go through the workflow automation processes. So I'm in JD Edwards. So let me add a order, and this is M30, and we're going to do it against 4646. And I'm going to create the order, and 24, is that 6? Yep. 3.6 or 3.8?
3.6.
3.6, okay. Okay, and by the way, I want to show this. So this is us reading the address book, and you see under payment terms that this customer is credit card. I could have also come in here, this could be an AR terms customer, net 30, and I could change it to credit card. So what happens here is I add a line item, and I go enter. So what distinguishes JD Edwards Interactive is that the CSR is entering what's called the cardholder data. Now, this particular customer already has a profile, but if they didn't have a card profile, they could come in here, hit Visa, note that it's a Visa card, and I'm going to do something here. I'm going to do view frame source. So view frame source is telling me that where I'm entering that cardholder data, I'm at CyberSource. CyberSource and Authorize.net, they're owned by Visa. So per PCI, the processing, the transmit, the storage, those are the three, card at rest. Those are the three states that they define cardholder data. It's 100% quote owned by the gateway itself. The profile is created there. So I just wanted to show that with pay new method. I'm just going to go ahead and use the existing payment method. And I did get an authorization success. So if I was to go into the sales order right now, what was the number, Katie?
24636.
24636. You can see that that order is placed, and you see the scroll, oh, there's the scroll button. And it's sitting at status 532. So 532, and we're going to show the administration, and once again, like I said, you could take a hold code or a status code. 532 basically says, hey, this is a credit card order, it's approved, and I could take it throughout the process through sales update. I'm going to do that with one of the workflow, because the focus of the presentation today is, in fact, the workflow. So with the workflow, I'm going to use a different customer type, and this is a full authorization. So 61840 should be a Midwest Bike. And if I, once again, look at additional header, we can see that the payment terms, and this is all soft-coded with configuration setup, and we'll show you that. But it's set up as credit card full authorization. So with that, I'm going to go ahead and create the order. And I'm going to hit create. So I just created the order, and I'm going to now go into my inbox here. And so this is telling me that this card ending in 111 was authorized for $153. Now, that particular customer had a profile already in existence, and if that customer didn't have the profile, then they would be having to enter it. So I'm just going to move this status along, and so what I'm going to do here is update customer sales. So I'm going to move that status along. Okay, now a good way of looking at the status of this order is to go in here and what was the number again, Katie?
24637.
So what we can see here is, and let me do a refresh. Okay, so it's moving along. So this is the report that's really explaining how EasyPay exists between JD Edwards and the payment gateway. So down here, we already did the authorization, and as I showed you, C1, that's a full authorization for $153. And we can see that the payment profile ID was there, and now we've done the delayed capture because I'm doing the sales update. Let me continue on. So now at this particular point, we created the invoice, 379779. So we completed that, and this is what we call our workflow process. So we started with EasyPay. The authorization was because that customer had a payment profile, and then I did a sales update. We progressed the order into the settlement, and you saw that with the sales order capture, which is also now reflected down here. Remember, before I showed you sales update, we only had the authorization. So now we did the capture, which initiates the funds coming into your merchant account. And then we created the invoice. So if I was to go into JD Edwards, and what was the invoice, Katie?
379779.
Okay, and do a find right there. We can see that we cleared it. We did the full batch AR updates. And if I come in here and show the receipt draft, you can see payment ID, batch number, everything is fully created. So that completed the reconciliation, the third part of the process. Okay, so now I'm going to go through some other use case scenarios, and if I was to come back here, we just did full authorization. Now we're going to do a zero authorization, and let me close out the general ledger. So M30, and this is 61858. So this is 39, right?
Yeah.
So let's. So once again, this is based on that customer going through a workflow process. So once again, I'm going to come back here to the inbox. Now, this account does not have a payment profile. So I just created an order 24639, and this now involves moving the entry of the cardholder data. That's the most sensitive part, where your company is liable. The CSR is no longer doing this. The customer, and especially, it could be on-prem, but especially if you're using AWS, this is now between the customer going into AWS, the form that you're seeing here, going into that hosted payment page, which I showed you a second ago, and let's enter the very sensitive information called the cardholder data. And notice this down here, save payment method. So you can allow, and this is a configurable option like a processing option, you can allow the customer to save the profile for future usage, like the next order, because the token that we send back, that's tokenized at the payment gateway, that's not cardholder data. So I'm going to hit finish here. Okay, now let's take that order and look at it in the workflow diagram. That's the best way to see the status, and it was 9, right?
Yep.
Katie? Okay. All right, now what we can see here is we're at the point where the authorization was a success. Now we're waiting for the ship status, and if we were to come down here, this was a different payment term. I said this was for 0 authorization, so you can see that there's no authorization. Basically, we're working against the payment gateway, just validating the card numbers, and you decide, that's your contract, what fields that you require, postal code, CVV. Those are all your options when you create the payment gateway account. But let me come back to JD Edwards, and let me move the status forward. All right, now the best thing to do is actually come here and just continue to do a refresh. And so we're waiting for the lines to be shipped. This is a batch process working against, and what we can see here is that the sales order capture just occurred. So we're working against the payment gateway. We've just done the capture. Still no invoice collected. So let's do a refresh and come down here and need to do a refresh again. There we do. We created the invoice, and there's the invoice 379790, and the process is complete. Suman, did you want to add some comments into what we just did in terms of the workflow? We can go into admin and show how we have these batch processes working against.
Absolutely.
Okay.
So what you just saw was 2 different executions. One was full auth, one was 0 auth. They are both working at the same time. So it allows you to be more flexible with your payment scenarios. You can have some customer marked as full auth, some customer marked as 0 auth, and Doug is going to actually show you another scenario where you can have some credit not credit worthy customer where you will take the full payment, which is the sale, before even you do a shipment. Also, go back to this report, Doug. I want to show you another thing about this report. No, go to the details. In this report that Doug has been showing, you can connect all 3 JDE, your authorizations, and your payment gateway authorizations all in one place. So if your customer calls with the order number, you can exactly go down.
Okay, the order number is up here.
Up here, and you can try that with the invoice number. Go down.
There's the invoice number.
And if you go down, you can tie that with the authorization number. So in one screen, you have a report for everything that's happening with a particular order. And we give you reports, downloadable Excel, for you to download these reports. And if in case you want to do a daily reconciliation of all of your transactions, you can do that.
Very good. Good update. And then Suman talked about that last one, a sale, like a credit unworthy customer, where we want to do an RU up front. So let's go ahead and close down this, go back to JD Edwards, and do another order. And so this order is going to be for a customer called a Lewis, and they are address book 61250. So let's go ahead and create the order, and this is for all. Now, once again, I want to go to the additional header and show you how we're seamlessly integrated against JDE Address Book AR. This is a cash customer, and we're coding it as CTD. And once again, you could use payment instrument too to tag these customer AR preferences. So I'm creating the order. Now let's add a couple of different line items on this one. I'm going to go ahead and add M001, and let me add also P001, and I'm going to create the order. Now with that, let's go back to the email. And by the way, as I'm back with the email, we have many other emails with the notification. So customers are being notified of the status, and you can see nice grids there. It's an email that's 100% soft-coded, so you can add whatever boilerplate and whatever you want to pull. But getting back to this credit unworthy, where we want to do an RU, this is for what I just created, 24640. We're going to add, once again, there isn't a payment profile associated, so we're going to come in here, and it could be e-check if we wanted that, or it could be Visa. Obviously, e-check. And by the way, our processing options, you might want to limit it with e-check. Certain customers, you don't maybe want to pay the hefty credit card fees. And let's go ahead and put that there. And once again, I'm going to save this profile. Now, there we are there. And once again, that's the customer directly working against, say, EasyPay and AWS working against the payment gateway of your choice. And by the way, there are other emails. You can see that this email, thank you for your payment of $280, and you see that information there. So if I was to now go into that report, and it's 4.0, so we've only taken it to the point of we're waiting for the lines to be shipped. So we've done sales order authorization. Now, because it was set up as a sale, remember how you can work sale, authorize, capture only? Because it was done as a sale, we created an RU. I can go into the ledger inquiry and show you that, but let's go ahead and finish the process. So we created the RU. In other words, you want your cash up front, then you go through the process here. Of moving the order from all right, now that we've done that, let's go back to the report and do a refresh. And it's set up on a batch. It hasn't. There we go. So at this point, we're doing the capture. And once again, because we've done the upfront sale, the capture is just a formality. And what we have down here, we still only have the RU, but that sales update, we still haven't created the RI. Now we're creating the RI invoice. You see that here as part of the workflow. And in fact, it's completed. So what we've done with this use case scenario is we created the RU up front, the 2037. We then shipped the items, created the RI, and applied the RU, and the RU was for the full amount, RU against the two RI ship items, M001 and P001. Suman, any other points that maybe I should highlight on here?
No.
Okay, so let's go into JD Edwards, and let's look at that. Did you note down the
yeah, which one, the shorter one?
Yeah.
2037.
2037. So this is the RU. There we are, $280, and it's cleared out. And then the other one, well, I'll go ahead and grab it. I'll just grab it. And there we are, we've cleared that out. The batch AR update has run. If I go into and once again, there's the detail with the receipt number, payment ID. So we did 3 different use case scenarios for the workflow automation. There's other areas of functionality that I wanted to show here. And it probably would be helpful if I was to review once again. We did the JDE Interactive, where the CSR entered the cardholder data. The real big focus of this webinar is the JDE workflow automation. Now let's go into finance invoice collections. So this is back in JD Edwards. And let's go to address book revisions. And 4242, do a find. And once again, Suman was explaining how Oracle has assigned P99 codes for us so we can bring up a form like this. And in fact, if I was to go to question mark here, you can see this is our PQ9901 form that we're showing there. And so this is now the ability for the CSR to filter and parse against all of the open invoices of 4242. So that's what this filtering is up above here. And then here, if I was to, say, select a couple of invoices, and let's go with 3 invoices, and we have a processing option turned on that says allow partial pay. And you can do that at the customer or account level. So let's go ahead and proceed to the payment ID. So now we're in the payment pad that should look familiar. This is what I was doing. You could also do a split payment. So if we wanted to split the payments between, and as you can see this profile, there is an e-check. If I was to apply, say, $202 on that, and the remaining amount, and do an authorization. And once again, this is the results down here. So once again, it's easy pay working between the payment gateway, transaction ID. Obviously, we're only getting the authorization number on a credit card, not on an e-check. But with that, if I was to refer back now to the demo use case scenarios, I did want to review the portal. So let's talk a little bit more about the portal. And let's do it from a couple of different perspectives. A customer perspective might be Patty Watson logging in. And Patty working against the portal, and I just showed Invoice. I showed it from a CSR perspective, but you can see it's basically the same form that we have on the portal. And by the way, additional functionality here, print. So if you have like document management and invoice PDFs, now this print is not that. This print, what I just did here, is auto PDF create. So we can create a form that's populated automatically using auto PDF create, and that's what we're showing here. But once again, I can go ahead and pay this like you saw on the other example. Come here and do just use the existing payment profile. And once again, tokens, those payment profiles, that's not cardholder data. It's just the XXX representation of the card profile. And we did get an authorization success on there. The portal allows many different things. You might want an end customer to come in and simply look at their available AR, their cash available, and we can work against anything in JD Edwards. Suman will show that in the demo there. We also have unapplied cash. So if you wanted to do, say, $202, and Patty UC, 1, 2, 3, go to payment options here, and this is simply Patty saying I'm going to do unapplied cash. So we're processing, and I can be going into JD Edwards and showing all of this. In fact, another way to show it is to show the receipts. Think of this AR portal real-time working against JD Edwards. So this RU that I just created, this unapplied cash, Patty UC 123, and here's that $215 payment because it was partially paid on the other example with the CSR, the $200 there. So you have those two transactions with batch number and payment ID. Customers can do things like Excel downloads. So on top of all of our grids on our portal, we have a very nice Excel download. And so you're seeing that there. The Excel could actually have more fields than the grid if you wanted to do that. And some of the other areas of functionality, statements. And once again, show the detailed invoices inside the statements. So this is all self-service functionality. We have subscriptions. We have auto payments. So we can do that where you set up auto payments of, say, the monthly invoices. It could be the full amount or a partial payment. So you can allow customers to do that. Or you can have an employee do that. So now what's the difference with an employee? An employee is represented by a Max Born. And the big difference with an employee is they're going to do an impersonate. So they're going to come in here and say do a find and impersonate on that customer. So from this perspective, they have more controls, ability to do reports because they're not the end customer. But this is going against 4242 because we did an impersonate and everything else that we have there. You can even do things like 4242 is an open AR customer and maybe they're over their credit limit. So you're requesting $300 because they're over credit, 1, 2, 3, and you want to send a cash receipt. So once again, a cash receipt sent. So if I was to go back to my emails, here's that has been created to complete this transaction. So now this is going to the customer saying you're over your credit limit. Please go ahead and I could have done a split like I showed you before. Instead, I'm doing that. So if I was now Max Born in here and go back to open invoices. So Max Born is working against 4242. There's that $300. And by the way, a lot of email notifications I'm not showing. So if Max wanted to take that over credit limit amount and apply it against, say, an invoice, that's what we're doing here, applying the RU that we just did a request against this invoice, do a payment here. And this is like over credit limit, unapplied cash against invoice workflow process that I'm showing. And there's many other things. I mean, right now I've demonstrated interactive, the workflow. I showed a CSR paying an invoice. I showed Patty Watson as a customer coming in and doing a lot of these things. There's more. We're running out of time. I showed finance, Max Born. I just did this over credit limit, unapplied cash. We also have subscriptions, payment profile management. I really don't have time to go into the e-commerce functionality, but as you can imagine, it's our e-commerce or any third-party e-commerce like Magento or Oracle Commerce that we can plug this in. Christie's is an example. My Christie's is a shopping cart auctioning and bidding application, and we're working within their applications using an API approach. Everything you're seeing is set up. In fact, Suman, why don't you explain that API, because that might have pertinence. Everything they're seeing can be implemented using SOAP Web Services or REST APIs, right? And that's what we did at Christie's, right?
Yeah, so EasyPay itself is a payment platform, and all the services, all the things that you saw can be used through REST APIs, through SOAP APIs. So if you have a third-party e-commerce store where you want to put the payment solution from EasyPay, you can utilize it that way too.
Okay, great. Now we're down to the last 7 minutes. I'm going to turn this over. Katie, can you make Suman the presenter? I'm trying to figure out.
I know. Okay.
Okay.
There we go. Okay. So this final few minutes, I would like to show the platform, because as Doug said, this could be one big difference maker between what we have versus other places you will see.
Are you seeing the screen? Okay.
Okay. So what I have here is that I have, when we install EasyPay, you get three environments. You see I have DV, I have QA, and I have PD. And let's go to Open Invoice and Payment. And here I'm going to show you that, I want to make some change to, let's say, this page using our platform. So I will go ahead and say turn on the debug mode. And with this, you will see this page has all these web parts. This is what we call widgets. These widgets are something that you can design with our EasyProcess toolset or platform as a drag and drop utility. So I'm going to show you this. Let's take this web part here. Let's go to EasyProcess. And I will show you that I have all the environments loaded here. As you see, we have DV, QA, and PD. So I'm going to log into the DV. This is the platform. I'll go to work with widgets, and here I'm going to type 780, and here is my Open Invoice E1. Now it's telling me to check out the source, just like, let's make it webinar. 5:30. Webinar. So we have source control manual built in. So I have to first check out the source, and then I can make a change. So now if you look at this, this looks very familiar to what you have here. This is exactly the screen you are looking at. So I'm going to do a drag and drop from a JDE data source for the document company. So we don't have the document company in this form. So I'll just put it right by the document number. So here's a new company I put, and you see that we picked up the description from Data Dictionary, document company. And I can just do a find now. And you see the document company is now added to this form. That's the drag and drop platform we are talking about. No code change. I can simply promote this to production now. Now I want to show you one more change. So I go to Toolbox here, and I want to drag and drop a button control. Right before the print, I'm dropping a button control. I'm going to name this button and say Contact Finance. So say you want to add this feature to your customer so that they can contact the finance. So if I do a find now, you see that a button Contact Finance will appear here. So now what I want to do is I want to actually double click on this, and that took me to a feature which is our business logic designer. This is where I can drag and drop and say, okay, let's go ahead and find this customer JDE information, address book information. So I'm going to say address book, and here I can go inside this. I can look at all the tables which are coming from JDE, or I can right click and go inside the query builder, and I can find F0101. And then I can find F0116, is the address, and I'm going to join this, and I'm going to tie this with ABAN8 with the logged in user billing address number, which is the address book number we assign to the user. So that's going to give me the address book information, and I'm going to brought in here the alpha name and also the address line 1.
And by the way, there's no typing going on.
It's all drag and drop. So all I'm doing is a drag and drop. So I just got, now I want to do another thing. I want to call a business function. So let's say in the email you want to get the information from the customer account information. So the account information business function is called accumulate air balance. It gives you the aging information and everything. So let's copy this and paste this here. And then I'm going to tie this with the business function with the address book number of the user. And now I'm going to send these information into an email to the finance.
And what you're seeing here is just an example of why we can create personalized, I talk about Yum and ServiceMaster and ICOM, and if there are unique company or market or industry characteristics or functionality, very, very easy for us to do it.
So please contact customer number, and then in the email body, let's put address name, and I can drag and drop the alpha name that I got, the address line 1. I can drag and drop the line 1 I got, then amount due, and here I can go to the business function and I can see all the fields here. So just drag and drop the amount due. The email format for this demo, I'm going to change the format to text. And that completes the business execution for this button. So let's come back and click this button. And there you please contact customer number 4242, address name capital system, address line 1, and this is the amount. This is the platform that has built everything that you saw today. There was
service-oriented architecture.
There was no coding.
Yeah.
So imagine if you want this kind of change done in a non-platform scenario. Your vendor has to recompile the whole code into a new Java or .NET or C# code and basically give you a whole set of new DLL. Here in our scenario, we just use our platform, which is very familiar to how you do your things in JDE. You have tool set, you have OMW, and you use that to change your JDE AdWords. I want to show you that this change now is not in QA, which is very important because you don't want DB, QA, and PD all done change at the same time. You want your developer to make a change in DB, make the changes, test the changes, and then you want that to be promoted by your CNC from DB to QA. So here I have, this is the webinar project I am working on. So I'm going to promote this to QA. So now promotion is done. If I just do a find now, you see that this change has appeared in QA. Now there you go, the document company and the QA. At this time, your user are testing it. They will test, they will basically do the same thing. They like the change. They will say, okay, go ahead and push this to production. So now I'm coming to QA and I'm promoting this to production. While I'm doing this, there is no downtime. You can do this real time. You can do this at the end of the day, but there is no copy and paste, which is the big thing here. Just like you are used to with JDE AdWords, everything gets promoted in a managed way through the OMW. Same thing here. We are promoting things. We are not doing a copy and paste, which reduces the chances of error. You can also back out a change.
And that's why we draw the analogy with JDE AdWords. So, Mike, could you go into admin? I think it's real helpful for the last minute or two because I was focused mainly on the functionality and the use case scenarios from a user experience. Suman showed the platform, but there's a middle layer there called the administration. So this is setting up accounts and managing the processing options is a good analogy. Go ahead.
Here is where you manage EasyPay. EasyPay has around 50+ processing options. If I go to profile, I can see that you saw today EasyPay full order authorized. If I pull up the processing options for that, and one of the changes that we have for this is when you authorize for full amount. You have a different authorization condition, which is saying that, okay, only do this for C1 as the payment term. If I go ahead and pull this for $0 authorized, you will see the profile is being set to use a $0 authorization here. So that's in an override, and it's using C2. What this is showing is, if you are familiar with JDE, but this is very much like how you set up a different version. So this allows you to have different profiles and have different conditions or different settings in those profiles. Like in this scenario, if you look at the setting in the global, we are saying that, okay, you do a sale transaction and do an RU. What does that mean? That's the create unworthiness of unworthy customer, and you are saying that as long as they are using CTD as their payment terms, make a full payment before even place the order.
Sale.
That's a different profile. You can set up n number of profile and n number of conditions in that, any kind of permutation and combination, and run those workflows with those conditions.
And then when we were doing the workflows, the batch processes for the workflow automation, isolating cardholder data between the customer.
And what I have here is that this is where you go and associate a batch job, the workflow job, with the profile. So now this workflow is set with C1, which is the full auth. This is the 0 auth, and this is the prepayment. Again, this is like a UBE. How you have UBE, the universal batch engine in JDE. This is an equivalent of that, where you can manage your batch jobs.
And what we're trying to do here, I realize that we're getting technical, but we feel that our big separation is good, clean, solid code that can be implemented quickly and personalized and adapted. And that's why we're showing you all three pieces, not only the various use case scenarios that I demonstrated, but our platform. We actually should have gone admin and then platform, but you get the idea. They all work in concert with each other, fully integrated against JDE Edwards, fully integrated against the payment gateway to provide the business, the automation, the security, and the business process or the business value that you're looking for in a project like this. Any other thing, Suman, that you wanted to touch on?
No.
Okay, I think that, Katie, questions?
No, not right now.
Okay, so we went a few minutes over. Thank you, everyone. We had to keep it high. And by the way, I do want to add, there are so many nuances. As an example, we didn't get into back order conditions. We didn't get into a credit card failing, either at authorization. We've got all of that. So, like Suman, as an example, if we wanted to cancel an RU, before we did the ship lines, we'd go back and do an accurate void on it, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
Those are all automatically, if you cancel an order in JDE, we automatically refund the amount, void the transaction, took care of all that automatically.
In fact, and another way of putting it is what you saw as an example with authorization. That's one piece. Most companies have order maintenance, order change. They're adding lines, they're deleting lines, and they need that authorization logic to work so that if you're adding a line, it goes out and, say, authorizes the delta between what was authorized and the new change to the order. So all of that is in there via workflow processes, and I think that, okay, we're 5 minutes over the hour. So again, thank you very much for attending. We'll be contacting you. This session was recorded. If you have any questions, reach out to us, and have a great rest of the day. Thank you very much.